MJF comes out calling him brain damaged Bryan, and he is not interested in wrestling tonight or entertaining these schmucks. He gets a big paycheck regardless of whether he works or not. He's got that guaranteed money. And he's a special attraction. And Bryan, if you took Lance Storm and Dean Malenko and they had a child, it would still be more charismatic than you. You look like a goat, but that doesn't make you the greatest of all time. Perhaps Mama Danielson couldn't find a human suitor in 1981 and therefore had to get together with a goat.
Let me just pause you right there, okay? Because, I mean, as great as this promo was, I mean, Lance Storm is no slouch, tweeting immediately, if Dean and I did have a kid, he'd be as good of a wrestler as Bryan Danielson. I'd have to have a kid with The Miz to produce the MJF.
Ooh, look at Lance on top of this.
You don't want to screw with Lance on Twitter.
Yeah, wow, that was great. The Lance gets zingers in for sure.
That's it.
So Danielson then brings up all of the human suitors that he's heard his mother has had, that being MJF's mom, and says that there's more than that could fit into this arena. And then Danielson surveys the crowd. How many of you have slept with MJF's mom? And they all cheer. Yes, we all have. MJF
he didn't say those words. He says, "How many of you are human suitors for MJF?"
Well, what do you think he meant by this?
I'm just saying Bryan Danielson is a little bit classier than that in delivering your mom jokes. Yes.
All right. Yes. How many of you had a custom suit made for MJF's mom? MJF says he's the best wrestler and has a title to prove it. Who made you the best wrestler in the world? Journalists who have never left their mother's basement?
I live on the second floor of my own house. Thank you very much.
That's right. Mortgage, bitch. And says, there are 3 men who have put me over. Disco Inferno, Eric Bischoff, and Jim Cornette. Great lines here from MJF. I thought the low-key best line of this was Danielson in his calm Bryan Danielson-like way, like taking a deep breath and stating in like the most relaxed tone, MJF, I hate you. Like just such calming, I hate you. Like not a anger, but just a fact. I hate you. And MJF runs as Bryan teases going after him. And MJF says, this is not play wrestling, it's pro wrestling. If you want a shot at my title, then you need to become the #1 contender. And he has come up with a gauntlet that Danielson has to run, where you have to wrestle on TV every week through February the 8th. And if you win all those matches, then you can become the #1 contender and get a shot at Revolution. Danielson says, no. I'm cool wrestling my schedule whenever I feel like it. And MJF blows a gasket. I run this company, not Tony Khan, not the EVPs, and you'll never get a title shot unless you do it my way. So Danielson agrees if he can pick the stipulation for Revolution. And if he beats these opponents through February the 8th, he will have a 1-hour Iron Man match at Revolution. And says that he will run through every opponent. And he's choosing a 60-minute Iron Man match because I am going to expose you as a bad wrestler who doesn't have cardio and is going to get exposed for poor footwork.
Oh, ouch. I love the stipulation. I think it's great.
I think you're all smoke and mirrors, and you won't be able to plot out 60 minutes with me.
Well, when was the last time we saw an Iron Man match in AEW? Have we ever seen a 1-hour Iron Man match?
Danielson and Hangman last year.
And that was TV.
That was TV, correct.
Okay. I love it. I thought it was a bit unusual that we would get something like this on a pay-per-view for a product where like pay-per-view time and trying to cram everybody on the card is already so hard to do.
It tells me we might get a more condensed card than usual. I don't think you can occupy 14 matches if you're doing an hour with these two.
How did the Hangman Iron Man match do in the ratings that week, John? Do you remember?
It was the first episode of last year that they did that one on. I can pull up the number here and
because
and
I'm curious.
It's definitely a different beast doing it on TV versus pay-per-view. TV, you know, in historically with WWE Iron Man matches on TV, you would see the pattern that people would tune in at the beginning and then they'd come back at the end. Pay-per-view, it's like you're buying the match. So I think it works much better on pay-per-view than doing it on television.
I agree. I think it's a very unique stipulation in that, like, there's enough intrigue and very real world intrigue in seeing somebody wrestle a 60-minute match. It is a very legitimate physical feat, enough to get you into the door to be curious about wanting to see the match. Does it get you curious enough if you aren't paying for it to watch every single second of it? If you're a casual fan, not necessarily. So I mean, I certainly feel like it, you know, it's certainly worth the risk. You're promising an incredible physical feat from these two. And I love just the logic of it. Here's Bryan Danielson, the pure wrestler, talking to the part-timer MJF, challenging him to be able to go 60 minutes in essentially a pure wrestling type of match. And logically, I think it's wonderful.
So just looking back, I don't have like the quarters, but that was the TBS debut. So you did have that going for it as well, with you know, a superior lead in. But the show did 1,010,000 viewers, and it was one of their best 18 to 34 numbers ever, as well. So it did very well, that January 5th show last year.
Okay, well, very interesting. You know, the Regal aspect of it all continues to be pretty interesting to me.
I don't even want to bring up Regal. I don't feel MJF is being painfully holding on to this title and everyone is after him, and it's the curse that Regal has left him with. I don't know. The more I dissect that promo, the more the
Regal explanation, I agree, I thought was completely unnecessary. But from Bryan's perspective, I mean, that is his motivation for wanting to get at MJF, is it not? At least that's how it was. And he continues to remind us by using the Regal stretch, even though the announcers aren't calling it. And in the body of this promo, you certainly had no mentions of William Regal. Like, I just felt the whole idea of revenge for Bryan was definitely understated this week, maybe compared to previously.
It's tough because you don't want to just complete, like, that was the whole setup for this. At the same time, you probably don't want to be making Regal such a focus. Yeah. It's a difficult balancing act, but you know, that is the reason for this. And the fact that he's using the Regal stretch, like, they are keeping that aspect of it alive, and also keeping him separate from the BCC throughout this whole post.
So he is teaming with Mox on.
That's right. That is right. They are teaming up. So that's interesting for Portland on Friday night. And from this point on, this is the passion of the Ospreay. He is bloodied, beaten, and Omega is murdering this dude.
We knew this match would be good, but just how good, I don't know if anybody, like, you know, knew exactly what it would look like. They not only delivered a terrific in-ring athletic performance, a great technical performance, but it was dripping in excellent depth of story here.
And blood.
And blood as well. It was everything I thought it would be and more.